Welcome to Ghostly.
Is Graceland Cemetery haunted?
All right, so this is not going to be your traditional podcast thing. This is interactive, okay? Are you guys ready to be interactive with us?
Woo!
All right, so we have thousands of people here. Just anybody that's listening at home knows. We have at least 1,000. I would say maybe 3,000. I'm thinking, I don't know,
At
roughly.
least.
Okay, before we begin, I need to know, who are the believers here? Yeah, in a podcast, it has to be claps because they don't see the thousands.
Fine.
There
Woos
you
are
go.
fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Now, where are my skeptics at? All right.
Now
Yes,
that they've been
skeptics represent.
instructed on what to do for their noise, I got it.
So the reason why we ask is because Ghostly is a podcast that comes out every other week, and in each episode, we take a ghost story or paranormal event and look into its complete history. Rebecca then gives us evidence proving that the story is real, and my job is to debate those pieces of evidence and get you, the listener, prepared to vote on if it's real or not. Most likely it's not. I'm just going to say that. So,
Boo.
so I'm Pat, and this is Rebecca.
Hey.
And this is our third Fringe. We are super excited to do this. And we always feel like this is home to us. This is like home base. This was, I think, our first real live show was here.
I believe so. And not just at Elgin Fringe, but at the Blue Box Cafe.
Yeah.
Woo! We love it
Yeah.
here. Absolutely.
Yeah, shout out. They have the best oat milk ever, I swear.
Everything is good here.
Everything, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Graceland Cemetery. Have you guys heard of Graceland Cemetery?
All right, we got some
All right.
yeses and some nos.
Sorry if you guys are Elvis fans. We're not talking about that Graceland, though. Yeah, I know the Elvis thing on HBO was really good, but we're not going there yet. This is Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. It's about, I would say, 40 minutes away from here. Would you agree?
Yeah, and it's just down the street from Wrigley Field.
Yeah, absolutely. Little known place.
Little known place. No one's ever been there. Wouldn't know where it was. It's definitely one of the most haunted cemeteries in Chicago, if not the world. Very
Not
exciting.
the world. Wow.
I mean, it's on the lists. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. But when we're talking about this, you have to realize that Graceland Cemetery has so many celebrities of their day buried there.
True. And of today too. I actually just watched a video today that was showing Ernie Banks.
Yeah.
Is buried there.
Speaking of Wrigley Field, we have Ernie Banks there.
And they actually have Ivy there. I teared up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. It was really great.
Please don't tear up during this though. That would just be embarrassing, I feel. All right, Rebecca, do you have a ghost story for us?
Of course I do. All right. So
It's time for a spooky.
Sorry, I have to do it. We are contractually obligated to play the music, so.
no, we love our music. Thank you. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I appreciate it. I just started a new job. My friends say I'm crazy for taking it, but it pays well and it's pretty easy. I'm a night watchman at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. I get it. I do. It's a cemetery. I'm there at night. But, this place is beautiful. Even at night. It's huge with a lake, winding roads, amazing trees, and the monuments. There's a reason they call this the Architect's Cemetery. Now, one weird thing, two different watchmen who trained me laughed and gave me a warning when we walked by one of the most famous monuments, a statue of a little girl in a glass case. They said, "Better watch out with that one. She's slippery." When I asked them for more details, they just laughed a little more and told me they were sure I'd find out if I stayed long enough. Well, I think I've learned what they were warning me about. Last night was a crazy shift. A storm came through. Big one. hard rain, thunder, lightning. For the most part, we were supposed to just stay covered inside during these storms, but it caught me off guard, and I was still walking my regular path. I was pretty sure I knew a quicker path back to the office, so I started cutting through the graves, kind of not what we're supposed to do. Unfortunately, I got turned around. It was dark, and the rain was so thick I could barely see. I just couldn't get my bearings. All of a sudden, I saw a flash of something running by to my right. I turned my head, but saw nothing. Animal, I told myself, and kept moving forward. Then I saw something off to the left, coming the other way, and this time when I turned my head, I swear I saw the flash of a little girl in a dress darting behind a large statue. Despite the rain, I knew I had to check this out. But when I looked, she was gone. I started wandering around, calling out, trying to find her. Nothing. I must have looked for 10 minutes straight, and I was soaked. At this point, I realized I needed help. If there really was a child lost in here during this storm, I could hear the thunder and see the lightning getting closer. We needed to find her. So I got back on a path, and I soon found some monuments I was familiar with. I was near that statue of the little girl that they had told me about. I thought, well, maybe she'll be attracted to that one, and I wanted to see it. So I decided to check it just real quick. As I shined my flashlight on the glass, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was no statue inside. Nothing. I thought for a second maybe it was just the light reflecting weird, but as I got closer, there was nothing. I stood there in disbelief. How was it gone? The glass was intact. No one could have stolen it without some evidence. All of a sudden, I heard the sound of a little girl giggling. I looked all around, but I saw nothing. I decided to finally make my way back to the office, soaked, scared, and worried about what in the world was happening. I decided to call the lead watchman, one of the ones who'd made the weird comment about that very statue, first, before calling the police. And I'm glad I did. When I told him all that had happened, he just laughed. He said, "See, we told you she was slippery. Inez likes to get out and run around. She's scared of the lightning, so she plays hide and go seek instead."
Wow. Okay, so Rebecca tells these ghost stories at the beginning, but she writes a lot of it. So I don't know what's made up and what's not made up in this particular story.
Nothing is made up. It's all totally real. No,
what? You're a night watchman?
It's a fictionalized version of a story that has been told before.
Okay, so it's all fiction. Then
No.
Oh,
This is we'll debate later.
Okay.
This is a claim.
All right. So the next part of the podcast, we usually do the history of the actual location, and we call it the Pat Facts. Remember, contractually obligated to play this.
Facts. From a skeptic point of view. Facts. He presents it all to you. Facts.
All right. I don't think we're contractually obligated for you to dance, though, during it.
But what if I want to?
Okay,
It's
that's a bonus.
tune.
That's a
It's
bonus
catchy
one.
tune.
The Pat Facts are sponsored by Tarot by Ta.
Ta is a professional tarot card reader with over 20 years of experience.
He reads at numerous public events, private parties, and personal appointments throughout the greater Chicagoland area.
He also does his readings worldwide using online services like Zoom.
And the best part of it, Rebecca, is that he is #Team Skeptic. So to find out more about Ta, visit and like his Facebook page at facebook.com/Tarot by Ta. Jason's a great guy. We love working with him, and we're glad to have him as a sponsor.
Absolutely.
All right, so talking about Graceland Cemetery, let's start by talking about Chicago itself, because you kind of need to know a little bit before you know the history of Graceland. So Chicago was a fairly big city before the Great Chicago Fire. But after the Great Chicago Fire, things kind of blew up. And I don't mean that like fire blew up. I mean that more like the population just increased just dramatically. And it increased because they did a complete redesign of the layout of the city. So one of the things that they had to change is directly because of the population spike. That's the drinking water aspect of this. See, there was already a city cemetery that was there. It was located in Lincoln Park and beyond that little area where Lincoln Park is. But that's really kind of close to the lake if you guys think about it, if you guys are from the Chicagoland area. The lake is where Chicago gets its drinking water from. And when you have a cemetery right on the lake, things tend to happen. So with the increase in population, there was also an increase in deaths, heavily polluting the drinking water and causing even more deaths on top of that then, because people were getting sick.
So you're saying when they decided to put the cemetery next to the lake, it wasn't a good idea?
Yeah, probably not.
The lake where they got
Probably
the drinking
not.
water.
So, but they decided to move the cemetery then. I don't know if you guys can imagine moving a complete cemetery, but you would be imagining it nowadays. So there was 2,000 bodies, and they wanted to move those to the new cemeteries, Rose Hill and Graceland. Although they only provided a couple of people and a horse and carriage to move all those bodies.
Right. By the way, they were moving them to the outskirts of town.
Yeah,
you know,
which is still
way
part of the
out-
city
way
to
out
us.
to that little town called Lakeview. You know, that was out there.
So can anybody guess what happens when you want to move 2,000 bodies and you only have 2 people doing it and a horse and carriage? Yeah, they do. They do, unfortunately.
If you've seen Poltergeist, you probably can imagine.
Yeah, there was skeletons in there. Yeah. So they didn't exactly move all the bodies, and some of the bodies are still discovered today. And actually, if you're in Lincoln Park, there is the Couch Mausoleum.
tomb.
Yeah, which actually you would not imagine this is a mausoleum that's still there. It still stands.
They just didn't move it.
Yeah, they're just like, no, we're just going to keep it here.
It's
yeah. Now, Thomas Barber Bryan was a lawyer that made a name for himself in Chicago. He was very active in city politics and was actually nominated for the mayor twice. Bryan was instrumental in Chicago being awarded the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893, and he also helped organize and run it. I'm a big World's Fair buff. I mean, I love anything about the World's Fair.
Yeah, I had to include a picture because, I mean, it's just fun to show the White City.
Yeah, exactly. So Bryan was known as the father of Elmhurst as well, because he founded a lot of the stuff in Elmhurst. But one of his biggest accomplishments was creating Graceland Cemetery in 1860.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's a bad... Sorry, I just had to break in for a second. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to be remembered for, but it is interesting to think like one of the things that he's most remembered for was creating the cemetery.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's nice. It needs
a
to
little
happen.
event happened in the 1860s that would actually add to a lot of the things. It's called like the Civil War.
Right,
I don't
there
know,
were a lot
something
more,
like that. Yeah,
more people. All right, I gotcha.
Yeah, so Graceland sits on the corner of Clark and Irving Park Road, which we would all probably know as the North Side. Back then, it was like a suburb almost. His son became the first person buried at Graceland and was actually buried at the Old City Cemetery in Lincoln Park and was supposedly moved to Graceland.
We hope.
Him probably because his father owned the land.
I mean,
so.
again, I would hope.
Graceland was originally 80 acres and was designed by Swain Nelson. In 1879, the cemetery acquired 35 more acres, and today it's officially 121 acres. That's huge when you think about city property, too. Graceland includes a naturalistic reflecting lake surrounded by winding paths, and its pastoral plantings had led it to become a certified arboretum of more than 2,000 trees. The cemetery's wide variety of burial monuments include a number designed by famous architects that you'll probably recognize the name if you know about those kind of things, several of whom are also buried in the cemetery. So some notable burials at Graceland include Louis Sullivan, George Pullman, one of the most hated men in Chicago history. Alan Pinkerton. Pinkerton was Pinkerton security firm, and they actually, one of their first clients was Abraham Lincoln. So they kind of dropped the ball on that a little bit, I think, Jack Johnson, who was the first African-American world heavyweight boxing champion. Marshall Field, another kind of hated Chicagoan, actually. Edith Rockefeller McCormick. William Holbert, the founder of Major League Baseball's National League. Potter Palmer. Carter Harrison Jr. and Sr., who were father and son mayors of Chicago. And one of my favorites, Daniel Burham. He has an island with the remains of him and many of his family members. So in that cemetery, there's a little island, and it's Burnham's Island. I think I found my phone.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
you found it? Okay.
Yeah. And as Rebecca had mentioned more recently, Ernie Banks, Let's Play 2. So there's a lot of very important people buried there. It's a really cool place to go visit. I know cemeteries are kind of creepy, but this one, like a lot of the monuments are designed for that particular person. So 2 important and often photographed sculptures by Laredo Taft are also found at Graceland. We have the Eternal Silence, or the Statue of Death. Some people believe...
Don't worry, we'll return to that one.
Yeah, some people
Don't
believe
worry.
that they actually, like the Ouija board, when you buy the Ouija board nowadays, that it has this symbol on it, like in the packaging, and it looks like the eternal death. So they
It's like
believe...
the green ghost, or I think it is, or there's a ghost.
Yeah, I think it's
figure.
blue in that,
Yeah,
though.
blue ghost. Something.
And we also have the Crusader, too, which is really cool. Another famous one is for Henry Harrison Getty. Getty was a lumber baron, and his wife, Carrie Eliza, are buried in one of the most admired tombs at Graceland Cemetery because it was designed by the famous architect Louis Sullivan. So Rebecca's going to read a quote from mausoleum.com.
According to the Commission on Chicago Historical and Architectural Landmarks, this delicately ornamented little cube, designed in 1890 by Louis Sullivan, marks the beginning of modern architecture in America. Upon closer inspection, it can be seen that Sullivan did indeed invent a new, based not on classical architecture, but on his own ideas.
Yeah. Do you want to read the next thing,
yeah,
too,
sorry.
since you added this to the script?
Yes,
I'm just saying.
Sorry. I love architecture, and I was like, I need to include this. So, all right. So Sullivan's limestone cube combines strong geometric mass with exquisitely sculpted ornament. Although a century of wear has affected some of the finer etchings, the basics of the design remain. Sullivan kept the bottom half of the mausoleum smooth, which serves as a foil for the maze of octagons, stars heralding the ubiquitous starburst designs which would appear in the 1950s are set to each of the octagons. The bands around the door and the windows alternate between smooth and ornamented, although critics will always debate which architect and which building signaled the beginning of modern architecture. No one disputes that Sullivan was charting new ground in architectural design. So really kind of the beginning of Chicago School of Architecture, and it's a tomb. Like,
Yeah.
that blew my mind when I read that.
Yeah, and here's an interesting thing about Louis Sullivan, too, is Louis Sullivan was known, we would probably best know him as the designer of the Museum of Science and Industry nowadays. And he designed a lot of different things. He was one of the top architects in Chicago. And when he died, he had no money. So he didn't even have a headstone. So all the Louis Sullivan fans decided to chip in. It was the first Kickstarter, I believe. Chip in and buy him a whole mausoleum type structure there. So
Yeah, he didn't get to design his own.
no, but he designed somebody else's though.
Right.
That's really weird. So we're going to debate the most popular ghost stories in a minute. But any way you look at it, Graceland is a beautiful cemetery that holds the remains of many of the people that made Chicago the city that it is today. You have anything to add to the history, Pat Facts?
Pat facts. The Getty Tomb is my big one, but it is a beautiful place, and it's I think it's a historical landmark. as well. So it's definitely a place to visit. I think right now I don't know if it's open yet. They've kind of been going back and forth on that, but it is a beautiful place to visit, and just a lot of people find it peaceful. So
it doesn't look like a mausoleum at all to me, looking at the pictures up there.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
All right, it's time to get to the debate.
Whoa, I don't think I noticed the ending of that song before. All right.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's that time of year again. Are you looking for something paranormal and possibly supernatural this Halloween season? Well, look no further. Join Graveside Paranormal Investigative Tours this season. Graveside Paranormal will take you on a 4.5-hour ghost tour of the southwest suburbs of Chicago starting on October 8th. During these tours, you will receive equipment at certain sites to do small investigations. You will be able to use our legendary Anahata Spirit Portal box. You will receive an EMF, and all of the investigations we will record and you will see on our YouTube series the next following week. Go to the legendary Chet Smalley Lounge to hear the ghostly story of Resurrection Mary. Or come to the farm in Palis Hills to hear the ghastly story of the Butcher of Palis. And new this year, and only on select dates, October 22nd, 28th, and 29th, for the first time ever, the gates of St. James Cemetery, otherwise known as Monk's Castle, is allowing us to push the gates open and tell you the spine-chilling stories on the grounds at night. So grab your holy water and call your mama and go to tours.gravesideparanormal.com. That is tours.graveside paranormal.com. Boo.
So remember, the question is Graceland Cemetery haunted?
No.
Right? And okay, we haven't finished yet.
Okay.
So we are going to debate some of these pieces of evidence, and then you guys get to vote, right? That is the point, right? So we don't decide, Patrick, if it's haunted.
Yeah, we're like the
You
lawyers in the
decide
case.
if it's haunted. So let's take a look at some of the evidence here. So I'm actually going to start with something that Pat mentioned. Remember, I said we would come back to this sculpture. So this is called the Eternal Silence. It's also referred to as the Dexter Graves Monument or the Statue of Death. It was created by Laredo Taft, one of the most famous sculptors in the Chicagoland area. Did anybody go to Laredo Taft? There's like a hole in the Black Hawk statue. Have you ever seen like out west? There's like a camp. I swear I went there as a child. I went there. It exists, right? Like, okay, I have this
Oregon,
memory
Illinois.
of it. Oregon, Illinois. There you go. It's beautiful. His work is very distinctive. So you can tell that it's him. Dexter Graves lived from 1789 to 1844 and was one of the first settlers in the area, and has an inscription on the back that reads, brought the first colony to Chicago consisting of 13 families arriving here July 15th, 1831 from Ohio on the Schooner Telegraph. As Graves died 75 years before the statue was created and 16 years before the cemetery opened, his body was relocated from its original resting place at the Old City Cemetery. Again, we hope, right? He seems like he's got money. Maybe it happened. I don't know. The bronze statue is of a robed and hooded figure holding an arm in front of his face, right, or at the bottom of his face. And here's the spooky part. So people claim that when you look at the face, you see a split-second view of your own death.
Okay.
I'm just.
Are you guys seeing how you're going to die? I don't know.
I mean, we're not there in person, so I don't know if it works through the photograph. I don't know. I just thought I would show that. There's also claims that electronics fail around it, and it can be difficult to take pictures.
Okay. So when you go there, there's actually like a little spot in the grass that people have stood on. So you can tell exactly where you're supposed to go to look up at your death. And I've done this. And I did not see my death, unfortunately. But also some of the things.
Fortunately, I don't know. I mean, I guess you went there.
I'd want to see how I'm going to go to prepare for it, you know. But I just wanted to bring up something. So it is green, right? You could tell it's green in there, and the face doesn't look as green.
It's dark.
But you have to remember, it didn't start off really that green. It was bronze. And so over the years, it just became green. And when you look into the face, it looks dark like that because it has a hood on top of it. And the hood goes out a little bit past the actual face. So it's the same color that it should be. It didn't get as much sun. It didn't get rain. It didn't get all the elements that we have in Chicagoland area. So, I mean, to me, that part of it really speaks out because everybody says it's like this black face in there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They say it's dark in there, and then you look in, and you're supposed to see. So
Yeah. So
there's a worn out spot. People go.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I think this is their imagination because it looks like death, right? I mean, you're expecting to see something like that, and it's creepy the way that the hood is and the Bela Lugosi look that it has around its face with the covering. It's just kind of creepy like that, but I think it's all your imagination.
Well, what's your rating then?
I'm going to go 0 on this one. We do a 0 through 10, and I usually give zeros, just so you know.
Not always, but a lot of times. That is true. I'm going to give this one a 6.
All right. By round of applause, who thinks you can see death when you look into his eyes?
Yeah,
one
right?
person.
Exactly.
One person thinks
there's a reason
can.
this story is out there.
All
and
right.
I don't think they're all just like whatever.
So I'm gonna say you probably lost on that.
I
regard.
don't think that. I'm never gonna concede. All right. Our next piece of evidence is one of the most famous burial sites, and that is that little girl Inez Clarke that I talked about in my story. Right, 1873 to 1880. Oh. Man, she was very young, 6 years old. And the grave is this very lifelike statue. It's beautiful, very, very lifelike, life size. And she's sitting on a chair, a throne of, kind of like
of lies.
No. It's a beautiful wood, right? You can see it's kind of like a garden, holding an umbrella. She's got her legs crossed, and her face has a very pleasant expression on it, playful smile. And it's just beautiful, and it is encased in glass. I've seen pictures of it without the glass, so I think maybe they started to get worried, or maybe because she keeps escaping. I don't know, but they added that on there. So the story is that she was on a picnic with her parents when a terrible storm came on suddenly. Lightning struck the girl, and she died. The parents were so distraught that they had the statue made in her memory. I think the story comes from these stories that have been told over the years, including by the watchmen, that when a storm comes over the cemetery and there's lightning, the statue disappears until the storm blows over, and then the statue comes back. Some people also claim to see this little girl running through the cemetery. Some say if you stand close to the grave quietly, you'll hear a little girl crying. And there's also stories of children telling their parents, "Hey, I was just playing with a little girl over there." But when they go back to look, there is no little girl.
All right. So this one is really interesting, and I didn't know this when I first saw it. I thought it's a very beautiful monument, though, for a little girl that might not have ever existed. So let me explain myself here. So based on extensive research, it is now all but certain that the girl is actually Inez Briggs, not the name that's on the actual tombstone. And she's the daughter of Mary C. Clarke from a previous marriage. But the thing is, she might have been like a love child or something. Maybe that's one of the theories of what it is. There's several theories. No one named Inez Clarke died in Illinois prior to 1916. So that it couldn't be right then. However, an Inez Briggs died in Chicago of diphtheria on August 1st, 1880, the same day listed on the monument of Inez Clarke. And the Amos Briggs noted on the record card. So Inez might sound like Amos when you say it, especially if you're from the South Side like I am. Inez, Amos, pretty close. But there are no records of anyone named Inez Briggs buried here. Hence, she is not buried anywhere in the cemetery, and moreover, no Amos Briggs is listed in the Illinois death records before 1916, which adds credence to the theory that the name is an error in transcribing the record, or there is a final theory, though.
Ooh.
One that I like to believe more. And you have to understand, this is a new cemetery that opened up, and people were getting buried there a lot. There was a lot of burials here. So
they're moving those 2,000 bodies. Wink.
Maybe. But the thing is that the theory says that actually it was a monument maker that was advertising his own business. So it might not have actually been anyone there, just saying, hey, this is what I can do for your family and your loved ones.
And then just made up a name and dates.
Yeah, because there is no Inez Briggs there. So,
but there is an Inez, there is a record that someone died at least.
Oh, I mean,
Chicago.
excuse me, Inez Clarke, I think is the name that's on there.
Is the name that's on there. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, that would be a really expensive thing to do, just to be like, and you should hire me to build your.
Okay, but think of this then. So you have this beautiful monument, but then they messed up the name.
Well, again, I'm guessing maybe Mary married Mr. Clarke. I don't know his name, but and he maybe adopted the girl. Maybe it wasn't legally, whatever as far as the death certificate goes, but he was she's my daughter. Maybe he was a cool guy,
I think it's all made up, actually. So what do you guys think?
Well, wait, you didn't respond to any of the ghosty stuff.
The ghostly stuff? Well,
Yeah.
I don't think that she's real. I think this monument is made up and it's an advertisement. So
therefore,
of course,
no ghost is running around?
No, well, ghost of who? Of what? What are you? I mean, if there's no girl, then how would there be a little girl running around
But
there?
if there is a little girl, you're saying, ergo, there is a ghost.
I'm not willing to go that far. And I'm going to go 0 on this one as well.
I'm going 8 on this one.
8?
Yeah,
Rebecca,
lots of stories
geez.
of this girl running around, whispering, people that work there.
All right, do you guys think that this girl runs around Graceland Cemetery by round of applause?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, there was maybe 2 out of 1,000 that believed that, I'd
That was
say.
literally almost everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Our next piece of evidence. So we talked earlier about the Columbian Exposition, right, in 1893.
Yeah,
right?
1893, yep.
Got it. All right. So of course, famous person from that was Daniel Burham, right? So we did have our earlier guy that was involved in that, but Daniel was
That's
definitely
the island.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay, I'm just saying. I'm just looking at your
really
picture. I'm excited about that.
So Daniel Burham, famous architect in Chicago, built many buildings and certainly helped design the White City and bring the Columbian Exposition to Chicago. So definitely a very popular man. And, obviously Devil in the White City, we all really cared a lot about H.H. Holmes in that, but Daniel Burham is another large character in that story if you've read it. So obviously very famous man. And yeah, he has his own island. We saw it in the map earlier at the kind of the north part of the cemetery, I believe. And it's not huge, right? But you do actually have to take a bridge to get to his tomb.
I wish it was like a ferry. You had to take a ferry across to get to the island.
Or like a punting, you know, like
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting though, because, you know, unlike all of these other architects, right? Or, you know, like people have these very fancy mausoleums or gravestones. His is a very natural looking rock with a plaque on it. You know,
it's a beautiful rock.
It's beautiful.
Let's just say that.
Oh, absolutely. But it wouldn't necessarily strike you as a gravestone.
No,
it's not a traditional one. And you would think, you know, an architect maybe, you know, would design it, or he'd have an architect friend that would do it for. I don't know. Anyways, this was his choice, I believe.
Maybe he designed it to look like a rock.
Maybe. So there's a couple ghost stories associated with Daniel Burham. First is the actual bridge that you take to get to it. People do claim to see hands and hear voices. And then people also claim to see the ghost of Daniel Burham here standing with his hands in his pockets.
Okay. So my question for you are, where are the pictures of this ghost?
No pictures of this ghost.
Oh, no pictures.
Oh,
well, then
my
there's
gosh. No pictures of the...
probably
There's
video.
no
I'm
pictures of
assuming
the
that there's
ghost.
video.
There's no video.
Is there any audio recordings of the ghost talking?
Listen, these things happen at night. People can't go in the cemetery at night. So the people that see it are people that like live across the street, and they're just
And they
looking
don't
out.
have cameras?
Well, by the time they get their camera,
How many of you guys have a camera on you right now?
No one. Well, I mean, they're
Yeah.
fine, right?
There's like 3 people that don't. I'm worried,
But
actually.
I feel like at home you might not like have it right there to be like, oh, and by the time you pulled out your phone and opened it up, unlocked it, got to the camera, like it's gone.
Okay, also, how many people have claimed to see this?
I don't know. Just
Okay,
people have claimed.
Okay. Any newspaper like article about it or anything that you found?
Newspapers don't like to write about ghosts.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to say that there is absolutely no evidence of this particular thing. So we're going to debate an idea that this might be there, and there's nothing to support it at all. So I'm going to have to go 0 again on this one, Rebecca.
Gee, surprise.
Yeah.
0. I'm gonna go with another 6.
6. Okay, well, you went down from 8 on the last
I did.
one.
This one is
so.
not as strong a claim.
All right, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Daniel Burham is a ghost in Graceland Cemetery?
I mean, he has his own island. Exactly.
I was going to say, I thought nobody was going to clap. I was so excited. I was
Yeah.
really excited about that.
All right, let's move on. Our next one is the tomb of Ludwig Wolf. Ludwig Wolf. That's what I'm going to say. 1836 to 1911. So Ludwig Wolf was afraid. Okay, I don't know. You know what? I meant to look up what he did. For a living or whatever. I didn't. But obviously had some money.
Maybe he made monuments for the actual thing.
Well, it's actually really cool. It's like okay, all right. It's like a hobbit hole. I mean, I'm just going to say, right? It's the hill, right? And then there's but it's not the green door. It's like a mausoleum door. But it's weird because it's kind of like going into the ground. Very different than what you normally see. But here's the thing. I guess he was really freaked out that he was going to get buried alive. Like super extra freaked out. I mean, 1911 is when he died. It's not like he was back in the day when that was really, I think, a little bit more of an actual concern. The bells, all that stuff. But he actually had he designed this, or had them design it with a vent so he could get air. I'm not sure though that would solve the problem. I was thinking about that.
But here's the thing: it is like a mausoleum, just pointed in the ground.
Right, it is.
So how is he going to get buried alive?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Well, but again, this
man was crazy.
Could he get out?
I'm just going to say, Wolf was crazy.
And to me,
Ludwig.
You would just like, okay, great, I have air, but I don't have food. I don't have water. Is anyone going to hear me under the ground? I don't know. Maybe I just feel like he didn't think of all the contingencies.
Yeah.
And anyways, but it's been said that the residents of apartment buildings on Montrose Avenue, located directly across from the tomb, have seen the ghosts of Wolf's wolfhound pacing in front of the entrance.
Okay, so Wolf had a wolfhound. Okay. So, again, let's go back to the pictures. You have any pictures?
No.
Have any video?
No.
Have anything else?
Well, you know what, though? Actually, I take that back. There are some pictures of wolf-like things in the cemetery, just not necessarily in front of this.
Yeah, they're probably coyotes.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. That's probably true. What?
Rebecca, you're not supposed to give in that easily. Here.
I know. Normally I don't, but I do. I do have to say, I was watching a YouTube video, kind of going around the cemetery, and like seriously, even in the middle of the day, there was like a coyote that just like walked across his path. So it is a refuge for wildlife in the city. So.
Absolutely, it is.
I mean, I'm gonna
have to go 0 on this one again. I don't know, surprise.
I'm giving it a 3. I give it a little bit. You never know, but I couldn't find much evidence for it.
Do you guys think that Ludwig's wolfhound, is walking around Graceland Cemetery?
Oh, we still got some claps. All right. Yes. All right. We got one more piece of evidence for you for this one. And this is the Greek temple at the Palmer Mausoleum. So anybody ever stayed at the Palmer House or walked by that in the city, right? That hotel? Yeah. So that's who we're talking about. And so this is Bertha Palmer, 1849 through 1918. And of course, I don't know why, Potter Palmer. I was confused. I was like, why does it say Potter? Sorry, Potter Palmer, 1826 to 1902. So according to the Graceland Cemetery website, Potter Palmer pioneered customer satisfaction in his dry goods store with money-back guarantees, merchandise on approval, and attractive store displays.
Are you doing a commercial for them
I don't know.
right
This
now?
is the website. This is what they say. He sold his successful business to Marshall Field and Levi Leader, and later became successful in real estate. The temple was designed by McKim, Mead, and White of New York, as well as Bertha's parents' French Gothic tomb across the road. I mean, seriously, you really need to have money to hire an architectural firm to design your mausoleum, monument, grave place. Like that's he must have sold that, or must have sold his business for a pretty penny, is what I'm saying.
All right.
But it looks very Gothic, or sorry, classic Greek is what I meant to say. I mean, there's a little bit of, we got the Corinthian, kind of curly columns there, right? And then just, there's no hiding it. Boom. There, two, graves right there, two boxes. I don't know what they're there. So basically, what people say is that visitors report feeling dread when they go and they stand in there, that it's like spooky quiet and colder than the rest of the cemetery. And if that's not enough, they filmed a scene from The Omen 2 at this mausoleum. So
The Omen
it was
2?
obviously a spooky haunted place.
Okay. Can you go back to the other picture, though?
I can.
All right. So I don't know if you've ever been in a cemetery, Rebecca. I'm starting to doubt this. because
have.
Cemeteries are quiet. That's the whole point of it. Rest in
this
peace.
Is eerily quiet.
Eerily quiet. How much more quiet can it be than a cemetery, than a regular cemetery?
You're in the middle of a city. So it can't be the quietest of cemeteries.
I've been in there before. It's all quiet because it's a cemetery. That's just what happens. Occasionally you might hear like a honk of a horn, but if this is in the middle, which I think it's close to the middle, you're not going to hear that. It's 121 acres. This place is huge. It's bigger than Great America, I think. I haven't actually done the numbers, but I'm just assuming. Let's just say. It gives you fear with dread. You're in a cemetery, Rebecca. Have you not ever been to a cemetery?
Yeah, but think about it, though. If someone makes a point of being like, listen, I've been around the cemetery and it was really great, but when I went to this one spot, it was like creepy cold and I felt super freaked out.
Those are the same
people. They made a point of saying it.
Those are the same people that love cemeteries but hate that there's dead people there. That's what it is. It's like
there.
Okay, and colder than the rest of the cemetery.
I mean, yeah.
Look at it. You could walk inside there. It's shady inside there.
But it's open. It's not like it's enclosed.
Yeah, hence you walking into it. You can
Right.
walk into
You
it
walk
and
into
you're
it,
like,
and
man, it's nice and
it's
cool in
eerily
here.
cold.
It's not eerily cold. It's shady cold. It's from the shade, Rebecca.
With the occasional honk of a horn. Or what did you say earlier? Yes, the honk of a
Honk
car
of a horn. Yeah.
It's just a weird phrase. I got it. All right.
Car horns, they honk, right?
Yes.
What would you call it?
Car horn.
Yeah, that's what I called it. All right.
What's your
Rebecca,
rating?
you need to go to a cemetery at some point, though. I'm just saying.
I have been. What's your rating for this?
0. I
Of
mean,
course.
come on.
Of course. I'm going to give it a 7.
You're a 7.
Yeah, it's not quite Inez, but, it's a little bit more than some of these others.
So people,
'Cause it's creepy.
people feel dread when they go into the cemetery. People explain that it's really quiet there.
And
Heads to
cold.
cemetery and cold
And
because you
dread.
can walk in there and get in the shade. All right. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this is someplace haunted?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Rich people are creepy.
Rich people are creepy. Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Now we're gonna go overall. Rebecca,
Okay.
what would your overall rating be for Graceland Cemetery?
Okay, so my overall rating would be a 7. I'm going to average it out a little bit. I'm going to go 7. How about for you? What would your average be?
Yeah, I'm going to
Pat?
actually average it out myself too, and I'm going to average it to be a 0 because they're all zeros. That's just how that math works.
That's how math works.
So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think Graceland Cemetery is haunted?
Oh, sorry, I went a little too far.
All right, I'd say maybe a third of the people clapped for that, and I'm being honest. A third of 1,000 people. So,
All right, how many of you think that it is not haunted? Also,
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
A quarter of the
I will send
people-
checks in the mail. I promise. All right. So I want to thank you so much for coming out to see us. And for the listeners at home, I want to thank you so much for listening. I love Graceland Cemetery. It's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go there, you should. Please tell other people about us too. We would love to have more listeners. Word of mouth is our best form of advertisement. And the whole month of October, which this episode will be coming out in October, will be spooky cemeteries.
Haunted cemeteries.
Yeah, and
You
we do
bet.
an episode every single week in October, so we're going to be totally dead in November, I would say. We might be ghost in November. But yeah, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Blue Box. Thank you guys so
Yeah.
much.
If you are in Elgin, go visit the Blue Box Cafe.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Elgin Fringe Festival for having us.
And until next time, stay ghostly.
Bye.